Alrighty, this is your producer, Gary Hendershot, and I'm sorry to interrupt that tune. It was really a pretty nice one, but the round table ran a little bit long, and I did promise Vinny Eastwood that I would play a pre-record on his behalf, so please do stand by for a pre-recorded session from Vinny Eastwood, and here we go.
Here today with the remarkably, incredibly, fabulously, awesomely, various other nice adjectivesly, activist, whistleblower, court watchdog, legend, in the flesh, Vince Seamer from kiwisfirst.co.nz. Good morning.
Good morning, Vinny. What a wake-up. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Make me feel good about going to prison.
Yeah, well, I do like to make people feel good about really terrible things happening. It's kind of what I do. Speaking of which, would you please elucidate for those who are unaware just quickly a little bit about yourself, and then, of course, give them the recent update of the protest and, of course, why you're going to jail now, more recently.
Well, I guess the upshot first is I'm going to prison tomorrow. I'll turn myself in on a 6-week sentence, which was ordered by the High Court, upheld by the Court of Appeal, and in a split decision yesterday, upheld by the Supreme Court. It basically is that unlawful orders need to be obeyed until overturned. They did acknowledge that Penny Bright, who's a fellow watchdog, and myself tried to challenge the suppression order, but were denied standing because we weren't party to it. It was a very important case here that people would not have forgotten. It was we had a December 2010 decision of Helen Winkleman, which ordered that 18, at the time, defendants in the Urera trials were going to be denied their trial by jury, which was a statutory right under both the Crimes Act and under the Bill of Rights Act. Now, this judge, in a secret order, said that a jury would likely use improper reasoning processes, and on that basis she was going to deny it, along with that she thought that it would be too long of a trial for a jury to sit through. So she subverted 2 statutory rights to trial by jury in respect to 18 citizens, and she did it on spurious basis, and then she suppressed it. She gave no reasons for the suppression. Turns out that the suppression was unlawful. Under the New Zealand legislation and English law generally, judges aren't free to suppress criminal judgments. So when I challenged that, I actually posted the decision online. The Solicitor General immediately sought my imprisonment. Now, 2 interesting facets of this case, which the public are really unaware of. I'm the first one in the Commonwealth, and I believe in the free world, to go to prison for publishing a criminal judgment. And the reason for that is because it's unlawful around the world. It's the transparency doctrine of justice is that judges must do their duties in public, and there's a reason for it.
I was posting this particular incident and the protest that's going to happen on Facebook. One person shared it and they said, "How can reporting a crime be a crime?" And I said to them, if you're reporting the crime of a criminal that is in part running the country and makes the law up as they go along, then it can be considered a crime.
Yeah, Vinny, it's a scary thing, but that's what's actually happening, and people are largely oblivious to it because, for one, the number of secret orders that are being made in the courts nowadays is just phenomenal, and people just aren't aware of it because they don't see what's actually happening. My exposing that so many people were denied trial by jury in a secret phone order. I mean, this judge issued an order over the phone, and it's binding on the world. Her judgment is binding on the world. So anybody who reported it around the world, potentially, if they landed in New Zealand, they could be prosecuted and put in prison like me. It's something that dictators have used for years to maintain control over the population. And it's happening here. Unfortunately, it's happening. We look out, the sun's shining, no one's getting mauled in the streets, and we think that that the breaches of the law on the highest levels isn't occurring, or we'd see some manifestation of it on the streets. But it doesn't work that way. There's a slow erosion that picks up speed over time, and I think we're at a point now that we've lost the Privy Council that it's really escalated as far as the deprivation on our liberties. And the fact that I'm going to prison for it is absolutely the case. Well, unfortunately, sometimes you have to sit in prison to stand up for your rights. It's unfortunate that we have to do that in New Zealand, but I'm not the only one. It's a serious problem.
You kind of pull in a Nelson Mandela.
Well, it's not just Nelson Mandela. People. I mean, commonly we look back and we say, "Oh, well, it was wrong." But there's a lot of people who are content when people are exposing corruption in the system. A lot of people content to vilify that person, saying they're the ones that are breaking the law. In fact, I'm getting, believe it or not, emails from lawyers saying that contempt is breaking the law. Well, no, it's not. In my case, there is no contempt. The Solicitor General at the trial said there was no prejudice for me in my releasing the judgment. It was actually a public service. His argument was that even unlawful orders need to be obeyed until they're overturned. And that's a dangerous argument because, as evidence in this case, Penny and I both made applications to the High Court and we were denied standing to challenge it. And unfortunately, no news organization in New Zealand had the balls to do it. They're afraid of the courts. They don't want hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to report the important stories. They'd much rather report if there's a beach whale or a doe bludger. Those dead whales and doe bludgers don't come back on them.
Incidentally, it's not entirely dissimilar from how a gang operates, and this is the reason why I fear two groups of people, the New Zealand police and the New Zealand gangs, and for the same reason as the courts now. They both lie, they both inherently do damage to you, usually through violence of some description. I think being sent to prison for doing the right thing, I think, is pretty nasty and violent. And more to the point, all three of these groups of people, the courts, judges, police, and indeed the gangs of New Zealand, all have no respect for the rule of law.
When it comes to themselves, they do believe they're above it, and that's quite scary. I mean, what people should take out of this is, and I think they do, the fact that I'm going to prison for it, effect over freedom of speech in New Zealand. In fact, the EQC exposer, the one that's exposing all the Christchurch earthquake money, is going off, being siphoned off to mates down there, and it's all they're showing hundreds of millions of dollars of unaccounted for funds. He's exposing that, and I saw the contempt application that the Solicitor General filed against him this week. And what's interesting is doesn't rely on the Bill of Rights or any New Zealand legislation. He relies on my cases. There's three, before yesterday, there were 3 court precedents which basically say judges can do what they want if they believe the orders are in the interest of justice. They don't have to be pinned to the rule of law. They don't have to have underpinnings of legislation or even the common law. They can do it if they believe it's the right thing to do. Huge discretion. And the problem is we have no independence of judges in New Zealand. They're all a tight-knit club. And that's evidenced in this Judicial Matters Bill, which is before the court, the Pecuniary Interest Bill of Judges, which has been submitted and going through approval by the Greens Party. Every judge in New Zealand has come out against that piece of legislation, and they've done it in a uniform document. Now, can you imagine all the politicians in New Zealand agreeing to a single document, a position on something? It smacks of a lack of independence. It's absolute cronyism. We have the case in writing where judges have made one document, they've all signed off on it. The district court judges of the district court, the high court, the family court, court of appeal, and the Supreme Court have made a unified submission to Parliament to kill this bill. I will soon write an article about will the last independent judge leaving New Zealand please turn off the lights. We have no independence. And it's very, very scary. You cannot get that independent oversight.
Now, based upon these facts, would you say that we have one of the most corrupt court systems in the world?
I can say, sadly, it is the most corrupt court system. And I've seen corruption in many places. But what I've seen, and I'll use the U.S. as an example because I'm most familiar next to New Zealand, if you get a corrupt judge, you can appeal it, and you have you can feel very good that the next judge up the line is not going to be connected with the local cronyism, and you're going to get a fair appeal. That doesn't happen in New Zealand. That's a big thing that's missing, that if you get a corrupt judge, and there's so many of them, you move to the next level, and the next level, because they're all mates, they're more interested in covering up the corrupt judge. And in my case, my lawyer raised that at the High Court that the law didn't provide for them to imprison me. It provided for a $1,000 fine, and the judge gave no reasons. Well, the High Court and the Court of Appeal then fixed it for that judge who issued the suppression order. They actually gave reasons for her. They actually said in their judgment, imprisoning me, that her reasons for suppression must be that it was done in the interest of justice. Well, it's nice if a judge doesn't give reasons for the decision that the appellate court will give reasons for that judge. I've not seen that before. I think that's relatively unique to the small incestuous culture of the New Zealand court. And then there's a lack of the fourth estate. What you're doing, Vinny, is quite remarkable because, and there's a lot of people joining the club, so to speak, in promoting that the mainstream media in New Zealand is not doing their job. And I've had editor of the Herald tell me that they don't report on what's happening in the court because they don't believe that people are that interested, and they don't want to get sued. He told me straight out that if they get too close to the bone with these judges' interests, they'll end up with a $100,000 legal bill, and so even if they win, they lose. So it's interesting that they're being driven by economic considerations and fears, intimidation. And now that I'm going to prison, now they have to worry about if they print something the judges don't want them to print, they too can go to prison. It has a tremendous quelling effect on freedoms in this country in a perverse way that ripples through the community very quickly.
It feels like we're under the rule of Idi Amin or something.
Well, people aren't being taken in, tortured, and killed, but that's part of the...
Oh, that we know of. That we know of. I can assure you that there's probably been many people in this country who've been this close to blowing open a wide, big case and just suddenly disappear or die in a car accident or something of this nature. I mean, look what happened to Alan Hubbard 3 days before he's about to go into court to expose John Key committing fraud and crime by getting the Serious Fraud Office to put Canterbury Finance into statutory management. He dies in a car crash while he's parked on the side of the road and is hit by a car coming the opposite direction on the wrong side of the road at full speed, and he survives that crash very easily, and he's even laughing and joking with the nurses at the Oamaru Hospital. And then in the 5 to 10 minute helicopter ride from Oamaru Hospital to Dunedin Hospital, he dies for some reason inexplicably. You know, this kind of stuff does happen. And what's happening to you right now, I don't know. I just feel like crying, Vince. Like, honestly, because I've known you for a long time. You're such a good man. You haven't hurt anybody. You're always trying to stand up for people's rights. You're doing the country some of the greatest service in terms of any watchdog that I've ever seen, and they treat you this way.
Well, thank you, Vinny. I tell you, there's a lot of people that do say those nice things, and that keeps me going, quite honestly, and it has to, because you have a culture, the legal community is very sheepish, and they're afraid to say anything, and that lack of an independent bars allows so many things to be perpetuated as far as the injustices that are occurring in the court system, and it's very easy to get discouraged when you're confronted with all that day in and day out. And as you know, my house has been raided by the police twice. I've never been charged with a crime. I've been to Mount Eden. This will be my 4th time. And each time it's for publishing the truth about what's happening in the courts, where they should be doing it. I shouldn't have to be breaking their secret orders in order to report. What I'm reporting doesn't compromise national security. It doesn't put lives at risk. It doesn't even affect anyone's privacy. The issues that I'm reporting, these judges denying trial by jury to people on the basis that juries will use improper reasoning process. In other words, they're too stupid to figure it out and come up to the decision the Crown wants them to. It's shocking that a judge would order such a decision suppressed. It strikes at the heart of why judgments need to be public, so that when a judge evades the law, evades the right, statutory right to trial by jury, that they get caught out, that the public see what they're doing, and they see that the judge is evading the law.
Tomorrow, there's going to be a protest outside Judge Winkleman's home, and let's see if we can get the details of that out to people. We'll be uploading this video as soon as possible, and let me just bring this up here and put it on the screen for people. So it says, hot off the press, I am the first in the Commonwealth to be imprisoned for reporting a criminal court judgment. I will turn myself into police to commence my sentence this Sunday, the 14th of July, at noon, during a peaceful protest in front of Judge Helen Winkleman's house. Everyone is invited to attend. The address is 20 Audrey Road, Takapuna. For anybody who's interested, that's 20 Audrey Road, Takapuna. Judge Winkleman is the judge who issued the secret December 2010 judgment which denied the 18 Urewera defendants their statutory right to trial by jury, which I duly reported and have been sentenced to 6 weeks prison as a result. I will be there as soon as I can. My show on the day ends at noon, and I'll be making sure to turn up with a gargantuan megaphone of proportions that put anybody else's megaphones to shame, essentially. I mean, maybe I'm compensating for something, I don't know. But we're going to be there, and we're going to speak the truth, and we're going to have it recorded. So, unlike the New Zealand courts, there will actually be a record of what happens there.
Hopefully they'll take an example from you, Vinny, and start doing it themselves.
I doubt that very much.
I doubt that unless we speak louder and get more people to understand exactly that that's occurring. But right on, Vinny, thank you very much. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Vince Seymour, ladies and gentlemen, you can check out his websites, kiwisfirst.co.nz or kiwisfirst.com. Thank you for your time and for all that you do to stand up for the rights of New Zealanders.
Thank you, Vinny. Cheers.